Everybody, it's Tuesday. Welcome to today's Daily Distinction. I'm really glad that you are joining us today, and this is one I've been looking forward to for quite a while because I've got my great friend Laura that's going to be joining us here very shortly. So thank you. Here's the first thing I want to ask you to do, and that is to share. My buddy Ken Walls was talking on a live stream that we do every Sunday night that we are rapidly going to get into viewer shaming. If you don't share this, we may just shame you publicly if you aren't sharing this, because everybody needs to hear what my guest today has to say. I don't know, Laura. I don't know where to begin because you've done it all. Everything from working at the White House to being a serial entrepreneur to writing this book that I've been talking about so much that I love, Limitless. You touch all the bases. You rock. And first of all, thank you so much for making time to do this today.
Oh my God. Well, I'm so psyched that you even asked me. I mean, you're iconic. So, hey, coming here is fantastic. I just want to hear your voice for a half hour. It's great.
That's nice plug. I appreciate it.
It's right there. Wait, yep, there it is.
Yeah, I know. Right over the shot. See it. I've been holding you up, and you can't beat that. Let's just jump right in. This is such a crazy time. And not only are you super successful at what you do, but you're married and a mom of two, and you've got two in school, 9th and 11th grade. So tell me what it's like for you to be having been going 100 miles an hour and then hit this brick wall that we've all seemed to hit with the
yeah. It's hard, right? It's hard to be forced to stop everything you're doing and just look around and make that decision of what actually really matters to you, right? I mean, I have a husband who has an exceptionally inflexible job. I have two boys that are in 11th and 9th grade, and they are used to me being home 3 nights a week, maybe, right? 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 if I'm lucky. I've always said that I because of this crazy job that we have where we can be home some days and be gone for other days, I have this great luxury that I get to pick my kids up from school some days. And I used to always say, I pick them up 1 day a week, 2 days a week, definitely. 3 days a week if I can handle it. And every once in a while 4, but never 5, because I find that a cameo appearance is much better than a starring role. I mean,
it's much more appreciated, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. Especially as a parent of teenagers. But right now they're like, what are you doing here? And I've always worked from home, but they haven't also been here.
Right. Right. Well, and one of the things we talked about before here too is, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the life events that they're missing. I mean, prom being one thing that, when you get to be older, you look back, you go, well, it's what a nice deal, but man, when you're that age, the world revolves around it, right? I mean,
absolutely. One of the best pieces of parenting advice I ever got was don't ever stop listening, because as soon as you stop listening, they stop talking. And by the way, you have to listen to the big stuff and the small stuff, because it's all big stuff to them. And right now I'm like, seriously, like I have to hear about the fact that you don't get to be the assistant to the assistant stage manager for your spring theater production. Yeah. Like people are literally dying, but yet this is the thing that my 9th grader has worked all year to achieve this title, right? So it's all big stuff to them. And so we're just trying to honor where they are. I heard something the other day saying that we're all in the same boat. And the truth is we're not. We're all in the same storm. But we're in very different boats. And I think now, as more states are starting to open and states like mine are closing for even longer, we're not even in the same storm anymore. So I'm just trying to honor and see them and hear them and just provide them space to just feel how they feel and not judge whether their feelings are worthy or not.
That's so important. And, you and I were talking right before we started about there are some silver linings as a part of this. And I think about the conversations that are going to be had 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when your 9th grader or someone else's child says, gosh, Mom, do you remember when and it'll be something so insignificant to us right now, but will have a lasting impact. When we put that puzzle together, or when we did something, and we've had the chance to really be present, perhaps more. right?
So my 17-year-old and I did a jigsaw puzzle the third week of quarantine. And at the end of it, he's like, we should really do another one. And so we went online and we tried to order a jigsaw puzzle. And of course, there are no jigsaw puzzles to be
The
found
world,
anywhere,
yes,
right?
right,
They're like,
right.
sure, we can send one to you on July 17. And God, I hope we're not still quarantined on July 17th.
No
So he's
kidding.
like, well, what if we just did one from our basement? I said, well, yeah, we've done those so many times. So he comes upstairs with these two jigsaw puzzles, each of which is an antique map of the world. They're
Ah,
slightly different. And he's like, what if we just combine them? So we take both of the
oh
jigsaw
my
puzzles out
gosh.
and we
Oh, so
pour them
hard.
onto our living room table. We burned the boats, right? Like there's nowhere to go now
Yeah,
except we just have to finish because you can't put it away the way that it
yeah.
is. You have to finish it. And I will tell you that when your 17-year-old who has like 9 out of 10 toes out the door says, hey, mom, I want to spend hours and hours and hours of time with you in a place where we're not looking eye to eye, but we're like side to side. So there's no confrontation and the words just talk. They flow and they talk and they just share. When your 17-year-old says, I want to do that with you, there's only one answer.
Yeah,
Right. And that answer is yes.
yeah.
So yeah, I think there are these moments and I do hope that we're going to look back at them and just know that there was opportunity and space here because we have the luxury to be safe at home and not just stuck at home.
Yeah. So good. There's so many things about your book that I want to get into, and I'm a fan of the book, and Tammy is as well, and we've talked about that before. But I really want to talk about consonants. Could you? I think that's one of the great concepts in the book. Could you define what that is to kind of kick us off? What do you mean by finding consonants in our life?
Yeah. So those moments when you're just like you are firing on all cylinders. You are in the place where you should be. You feel alignment, you feel flow, everything that you do. Like the very best of what you do is being called upon to solve a problem at hand. And it's a problem you actually care about. And you're being rewarded for solving that problem in some way that's financially or karmically interesting to you. That's a moment where you have consonance. That's a moment where the what you do matches the who you are. And when we're in that space, we're limitless. That's the space where we're in, where we can do anything, we can be anything, and we really see that shining best version of ourselves.
Well, let's talk about what creates that. By the
Yeah.
way, there are 4 elements of consonants, and I want you to know I do have them in front of me. And the reason I'm saying that is because I was doing one of these the other day, and they're talking about the 5 factors of iconic performance. And for the life of me, I could not think of number 5. If a
Oh my
gun
God.
had been held to my head, I could not have come up with the 5th factor. And I wrote the book.
See, I think that's part of the trauma, right? Like I was involved in the Boston Marathon in 2012 and 2014, and in 2013 we had the marathon bombing, and
Yeah.
I was deeply involved in, even though I didn't run that year. And a week after the bombing, I went to my bank to take some money out, and I couldn't remember my ATM number. And then a week later, I went back, and a week later, I went back. And after a month, I was like, screw it. I don't remember. I walked into the bank and I said, please tell me my ATM PIN number. And the woman gave me the PIN number and she said, here you go. And I said, oh, did you just assign me a new number? And she said, no, that's the same number you've had for 10 years. And it didn't even look familiar. So I think some of that is like the COVID exhaustion or, so yeah, I appreciate you having it in front of you, because if you didn't have it in front of you, I would probably forget the 4th element of consonants, and they all start with a C. So you would think I'd remember them.
And isn't that funny? I mean, because I've even had an interviewer say, and Scott, on page 162 of your previous book, you mentioned.
I'm just going to take your word for that. Thank you very much.
I'll go with you. All right, let's talk about the first one. And the first one is calling. Tell me what do you believe that we really have a calling? And if so, how do we go about finding it?
Okay, so I should preface this by saying, before I wrote this book, I spent 20 years doing executive search for nonprofit organizations.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm an unimpeachable source on this idea. We all have not just one calling, but several callings. And those callings are going to change throughout our lives. Like this idea that we have, this calling, this higher purpose, this lofty purpose is nonsense. So not only do we not just have one calling, we have multiple. And your calling may be buying a Maserati in a beach house. Your calling may be curing cancer. Your calling may be, getting that job that pays you a lot of money so that you get out of debt and that your children don't have to live in debt and be saddled in the same way that you do. Your calling can be feeding the poor in deepest, darkest third world countries. Your calling is simply your calling. And we get into trouble because we think, there has to be only one. We have to follow our passion, and that's going to be the golden, the golden discovery. Or that purpose has to have lofty or higher in front of it. And God forbid we don't have that. We're not wearing the white hat. Then we're just mailing it in and callings for somebody else. Your calling is only your calling. And I would, the book is called Limitless, How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path and Live Your Best Life. But the key part of that is ignore everybody, because all those people out there who are purpose shaming you, who are telling you that your purpose isn't worthy, it's nonsense. Your purpose is only your purpose. And the only person who gets a vote is you.
I've been criticized before, and I'm sure willing to take it, but I've been critical of the Simon Sinek book about Start With Why. Not that why isn't important, but what he says that organizations have a why and people buy your why. Well, I disagree with that on two levels. One is I buy their how. Right. If what I buy from them isn't working, I don't go, well, that's okay. At least they've got a great why. No, if I buy it, it had better work. But the second thing is, and it's to your point, is that people have different callings. I don't think you can, he says people will buy the why of the organization. And he cites Apple as an example. But when I go in there and say, what's your why to an Apple Store employee when they were open? The answer might be to pay off my student loans, which is a great calling. It's not the why organizationally, but it's what will inspire and move that individual. It seems to me is their calling to pay off the student loan, not this lofty organizational calling to which they're not subscribing. Does that make sense? It's
absolutely. And I think that what happens a lot of times with managers is they look at their employees as if they're this one big monolith.
Yes, right.
Or they'll say, not just all my employees, but all of my boomers, all of my Gen Xers, all of my millennials. These are the things that they care about individually. Like all millennials care about this one thing. They care about me having kombucha on tap in my break room. Or, all Gen Xers care about is having, work-life balance or whatever it is. And the truth is that everybody has different things that they care about. And until we look at our employees as individuals and understand what actually motivates them, then we're not going to be able to actually motivate them. When I was doing search, I used to listen for basically 8 motivating factors. Like I'd get on the phone with somebody and my job was to try to turn their life upside down and get them to move with their, middle schooler across the country for a job they'd never heard of, an organization they didn't know existed, from a headhunter who they didn't know or trust. And I would have to listen for things like, do they care about the mission? Are they inspired by the leader? Are they interested in the, geographic location? Do they care about the money? Is what's the scope of impact they're going to make? What are the new skills they're going to acquire? How prestigious will this job look on their, or title look on their resume? And everybody thinks about those things differently. So for some people, the money is 100% the thing they care about most. But for most of us, the money's somewhere in the middle of the list, maybe even lower, and it's the other things. And until we understand what our employees actually care about, for some of them, it's going to be calling. It's going to be the mission of the organization. But for others, it's going to be some of the other 3 C's.
Right. And the next one is one I think that's, we might have taken it for granted before this, but when we talk about connection, I think we're having kind of a reset on that in terms of our appreciation and our value of the importance of connection.
Yeah. So connection answers the question, what if I didn't go into work tomorrow? What if I called in sick? Would anybody notice, and would anybody care? Like, does my work actually matter? Does my work matter to my colleagues? Does it matter to the company? Does it matter to the mission we're trying to serve? And mostly, does it connect to that calling that I care about? So what is the work that you're doing, and does it actually have any purpose whatsoever? And, when I was dropping out of law school and joining the Clinton campaign, I got the coffee for the guy who got the coffee for the guy who got the coffee. I had no connection whatsoever, but I had tons of calling. Now I'm not going to do work if it actually doesn't, move what I want to do forward. Like I am much more a single producer right now than I was then. So it matters differently. And the thing about these 4 C's is that at every age and every life stage, your rubric, your calculus on each of these 4 C's and how that gives you consonants will change.
It's one of the things I loved about the book, by the way, Laura, is that I've read so many, gosh, I don't know, personal development, I don't know, self-help, whatever that category is that I don't think has really been properly described or defined. And it's almost like you first of all, you have a calling, and second is you're going to carve it in granite and it can never change. And you mentioned the Clinton campaign, and yeah, I'm a nut about presidential history, and I think about Ronald Reagan growing up in Dixon, Illinois, and if he would have carved in stone, I don't think the road to be president was to be a radio announcer in Des Moines and then an actor in Los Angeles. I mean, it's all of that evolves and changes over a period of time, and that's one of the things I love about your book is how you reflect on and how you help direct us that it's okay for this to change and evolve as your life changes and evolves.
Well, when the book came out, I did something like 150 podcasts, and I did TV and radio and print and all of that. But these podcasts, there was one question that I would get asked, probably about 20% of the podcast, and it was this question: what advice would you give your 22-year-old self? And I remember thinking to myself, my 22-year-old self, who's listening on a mobile device to a podcast that was recorded over the internet. Now, I don't know how old they thought I was, but none of those 3 things existed when I was 22. Yeah. So even if we do know our calling, and even if we do know ourselves when we're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, when we're asked to pick a path, a major, a career, a college, we don't even have a frontal lobe, right? Like the part of our brain that dictates good decision making. Even if we do know ourselves, the world around us changes so much that if we carve our calling in stone, then we're wasting probably 70% of our lives.
Yeah. The blinders we would put on to do that would eliminate so much. I got to ask the same question. And the only answer I could really think of that I would really, really say is buy Apple stock.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'll know. Hey, we got a couple folks. John Michael is watching us saying hello, speaking spillers. So that's from a little group that we were a part of. Phil is a everyday participant here and a great speaker in his own right. And he's so right. Everybody has a different way of counting. And that's part of what it's about. And thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. Thanks for having it here. And run, do everything different. We didn't have mobile devices when I was 20. Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly what she's saying. But one of the interesting things I think that some of the folks who've commented on the past, we've talked about in a previous episode, is the old Maslow pyramid. And it seems like we've slid a bit back down. We've gone down a step. I'm curious what you think about that, and it also leads into contribution. Because I think that's where many of us are feeling a great degree of frustration with holding in place. Is it has perhaps, and I think it's our perception of it. I don't think it's necessarily true, but I think our perception is we can't contribute the way we used to contribute because we can't get out of the house. We can't do so. Talk about contribution and what that means. But would you also, Laura, how do you feel about how you make that happen in a time that we're sheltering in place?
Well, so the way that I talk about contribution in the book is really more like if connection's all about the work, contribution's about you. So how does this work, this brand, this paycheck contribute to the life that you want to lead, contribute to the career trajectory that you want to build, contribute to the kind of, financial flexibility or lifestyle that you like, but also how does it allow you to manifest your values on a daily basis? And so the work contributes to your life in some way. And I think we often think about, I need to be contributing, I need to be giving, and my work is this other separate thing. But the way that I write about it in the book is that I think that we can create a world in which our work allows us, because it contributes into our life, for us to contribute into the greater world that we live in. And here's what I have been saying to people. I think that before this all happened, we had an issue around ambition, right? Like, oh, she's so ambitious. Like, nobody likes
Mm.
to think about that. But here's my question. Would having more money, more time, more leverage, more network, more platform allow you to show up better for the people that you love and the causes you hold dear? Right? Yeah. I mean, of course it would. So I think it's not your ambition, it's your responsibility. And I think each one of us in this time have something that we can give. So I've been going live on my Facebook page at 10 a.m. Eastern every morning, partly because I want to get the reps in, partly because I want to figure out, the light and the camera and the technology
Sure,
and all
sure.
that stuff, because in our business right now, if we show up and we don't know how to use our stuff, it's like, oh, it's human, it's funny. But in 2 months and in 3 months and in 6 months, if we don't know how to use our stuff, it's going to be pretty annoying to our paying clients.
You
So
bet.
I've been trying to show up, but what I've been saying is I will keep showing up each morning as long as all of you out there in Facebook land keep showing up back. And people have been showing up. And I've been getting, side messages, text messages, people sliding into my DMs, whatever you call that, of people telling me, like, I really appreciated what you said on this day, or I really appreciate what you said on that day. And it really helped me to do things a little bit differently. So for me, my work contributes to me being able to show up with the things that I know and the perspective that I have in a way that helps some of my friends sort of move further, towards what it is that they want to do. And I think, yeah, we can't look, we can donate money, we can sew masks, we can do all sorts of things. But I think in addition to that, or if that's not your jam, instead of that, it's thinking about what is this thing that you know? And how can you put it out into the world in a way that's interesting? I think a lot of individual contributors, a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking, how do I pivot? How do I change all my content? How do I do things totally differently? And my advice is always, how do you take what you know better than anybody else? And you then think about that for this time. So I have a 4-page media guide for Limitless that I used to send out for TV and radio. And I took it and I just took the whole document and I copied into a new one and I wrote Limitless for COVID-19. In a world where we are physically limited, do we have to be mentally and emotionally limited? No. So how do we figure out how to be limitless in a limitless world? And going through the exercise of how do I take my current content and repurpose it, not change it, not pivot, not try to reinvent and be somebody totally different, but how do I do the things that people know and rely on me for, but in this current world has allowed me to figure out how to contribute. So it's kind of a long answer to how do people contribute, but I think how you contribute is you go to the base of strength you already have, and then you figure out how do you take that into the current world.
By the way, for all of you that are watching right now, is this just fantastic information from Laura? And as I said at the beginning, you may have missed it. So please share this because we got about 10 minutes to go. And I'd hate for anybody to miss the last 10 minutes because it is my favorite of the 4 elements of consonants that we're going to be talking about. So please share. By the way, Shelly just posted, if you're following along on Facebook, because we are live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram. But if you're on Facebook, Shelly just posted the link on Amazon to Laura's book. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. All you got to do is just click the link and it'll take you there so you can see Limitless. And thank you, Shelly, for posting that for us. And Laura, it gets down to control. And I think that is one, I shouldn't say even gets down to control, it gets up to control, perhaps might be a better way to phrase it. I think one of the challenges that so many of us are facing right now is the perceived loss of control.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, we can't go to the favorite restaurant anymore. We can't go to, a buddy of mine and I were talking the other day about, how much we'd love to go to a bar. Not
I miss bars.
Yeah. And it's not because we miss the alcohol, right? It's not because we miss the drink, got that home. It's that I just miss the conversation with friends and I miss the stimulating environment and I just miss the vibe, for lack of a better word. And that being taken from us, or the travel that, it never got to me before how I am addicted to travel.
Yeah.
Because of what I was doing in a student organization. I went on the road on my 18th birthday, basically, and I haven't been home since, I really went through a period at the beginning of this. It was almost like withdrawal. I mean, the fact that I was sleeping in my own bed every night and not going to the airport, I'm sure you've had similar feelings. And
yeah.
so
I love my family, but
yeah,
cameo appearance, man, cameo appearance.
right, right. And so, the question is, first of all, how do you define control? And secondly, what do you recommend that people do to maintain control when all of the things around us are it seems like coming together to take control that we've taken for granted away?
Yeah, so I am a control freak of the highest order. Like I will sit in the airplane seat of every airplane. And it's not because I think I'm going to be able to escape the fiery ball of death that is an airplane crash. It's because I just need the illusion of control. I'm such a control freak. So for me, this has been difficult. It's been difficult because I spent the last 2 years building up the Limitless book and the speaking from it, and I had all this traction that was coming and all the media and all the great stuff, and all of a sudden it was like gone. That's been really hard. And what I saw people do is they did one of two things. They either went to the corner and curled up in fetal position and did a lot of self-care, which is great, or they were super productive and cleaned out their closet and baked bread and all that sort of stuff, which is also great. I think the first thing about control, in the book, I talk about it as having sight lines, understanding how much control, how much personal agency you have about how much your work connects to the calling and how much it contributes into your life. But for this period right now, I think the most important thing is if you're feeling like you don't have control, is to ask, right? If you feel like your day's full of Zoom meetings, talk to your boss. Why, can you tell me what we're trying to get out of this meeting? What does success look like for this week? What's the weekly sprint, the daily sprint? What is it that we're going towards? To understand that it's not just, this isn't our new normal. This is just this weird period that we're in right now. And being able to ask, what does success look like? And how can the work I'm doing help contribute to that success will help to prioritize your activities. In the same way that for me, I'm saying you can either sit in the corner or you can, bake bread all day long, but whatever works for you is the thing that works for you. Again, ignore everybody, carve your own path and live your best life. I found that my need for control really exhibited in the sort of mania that made me very prolific for the first 3-4 weeks. I wrote more than I've ever written. I worked out harder than I've ever worked out. I was cooking like crazy, making these big gourmet meals. And then I hit a wall. And suddenly I needed to be the one in the corner in fetal position. And I think it's just really understanding that every day is a different day, that there are going to be emotional highs and emotional lows. And, you've reinvented yourself more times than anybody I've ever met. But that it's understanding that the confidence to dream big dreams and the confidence to make changes in your life doesn't come from waking up one day and saying, I have confidence, everything's going to be great. It comes from putting one foot in front of the other and realizing that you have competence. Because competence, like it's not dream it so you can do it, it's do it so you can dream it. The more you do, the bigger you can dream. And right now, at this moment, we have control over certain things. We have control over how we act. We have control over how we react. We have control over how we care for our loved ones, whether they're in our house or not. We have control over, whether we stare at screens outside of the Zoom meetings. We have control over lots of things, but we have to decide what's actually important to us and which things we actually want to control, and then really double down in those spaces.
Laura, to piggyback on that important point you make, I've also seen kind of, unfortunately, a third alternative. I think people that are just getting angry. They don't know what to do, and so they probably would be better off to curl up in a fetal position for a little while and let it go. But anger is a part of this, and I'm seeing as well. It's almost
we'll
like
see more of that too. I think as some states
I agree.
open up and some don't, we're going to see anger and jealousy, and there's going to be a lot of emotion.
And so being able to control ourselves, I think, has never been more important, and to control our attitude and control our approach has never been more important. Because Boston is one of those places that's going to be locked down for a while, right? I mean, it's not going to be one of the early ones to open up. Vegas is the same. I mean, unless our
unless your mayor says anything different.
I've said many times I don't want to talk politics while we're doing this. There's enough politics around us, but
I think there's some pretty obvious things that are.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
all
not
agree on.
political. That's But both you and I are in places that are kind of going to be some of the last to open up, and then you see, I saw a picture this morning of diners at an outdoor cafe. I think it was in Texas, and the waiter has a mask on, and there's the social distancing and all that. But I thought, man, it'd be nice to go somewhere and sit and have a meal. With even just Tammy and me, who are having every meal together, just to have it outside and have someone bring it to you, and you sit and you see other people, would be kind of nice. But
I'm going to take a blowtorch to my kitchen when this is all said and done. I can't wait. So I'm on a group text message. It's me, my mother, my sister, and my cousin, my cousin grew up in my house. So she's like another sister. I'm in Boston. My sister's in Dallas. My mother's in Palm Beach in Florida, and my cousin's in Atlanta, right? So you have Georgia, Texas, Florida, and then me. And I'm like, don't go outside. And they keep texting me about my hair salon's open. And that's
oh gosh. Oh man. And I have put on the COVID-19 pounds.
Oh yeah. Freshman 15 got nothing on COVID-19.
Exactly. I've been joking. We've been eating so great. I mean, we've been having great meals, but that's part of how we spend our time, is to prepare a night, prepare a meal, and we
most
finish.
People get heavy when they travel, and we're getting heavy because we're staying home.
Right. That's just we're loving it. Well, anyway, we're about at the end, and any message that you'd like to leave with us, Laura, in terms of all that we're going through, and just by the way, I've been putting up different posts and comments from everybody, but Tim Jackson is somebody that watches just about every day. He is a great communicator in his own right. He's an association executive as well in Colorado, and so he's jumping on the Limitless train here as well, and a couple other notes from other folks off the side that are doing it as well. So you have touched and influenced the folks that are watching today, and I knew you would, because I just think the world of you and your message and everything else, as you know. So, Laura, any last insight that you would give us about how to deal with this crazy time that we're going through right now?
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I would give you the best piece of personal and professional advice I've ever been given in my life, and it was pretty hard to hear, but it was this: you're just not that important, right? That's pretty hard to hear, because we think we have to be so important for everybody in our house, or people on our, that we're texting all day long, or everybody that we're working with, or all the Zoom calls. And the truth is that none of us are that important, but there are some people to whom you are that important. There are some causes to whom you are that important. There are some projects for whom you are that important. So forget about all the rest of the noise that we feel like we have to show up all day long, every day for everything, and figure out where you are that important and double down there. Because when life goes back to normal, the life you have isn't necessarily going to be the life that you're looking for. So figure out what you want your normal to be. And when you double down for what really matters, when life goes back to normal, you'll get the life that you want. That's my message.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Laura Gassner Otting. She is the person who is the author of Limitless and is just absolutely fantastic. Laura, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being a part of today's Daily Distinction, and thank you for watching. Hey, I'm going to answer a question here real quick. Bruce wants to know if the puppy's still enjoying BarkBox. It is absolutely fabulous. Yes, Lucy is continuing to be a BarkBox junkie. I think if a month went by that we didn't get BarkBox, she would bite me. So thanks, everybody. It's so great having you here. We'll see you tomorrow on the next Daily Distinction. See you then.